Welcome in, boys and girls. It's another phenomenal episode of the 3-Man Leap College Basketball Podcast. Matthew Cox running host tonight, joined by Kai and Jim per usual. Just saw their smiling faces last night at the Circa grand opening launch in Illinois. Congrats to Circa, just for my money, the best damn sportsbook, period. Opening its doors to the lovely patrons of Illinois. Kai is repping the swag. I could not find my XXXL hat, which doesn't look cool on me, but I should have probably been repping the I guess they're a sponsor. They were a part-time sponsor for the contest last year. Hopefully we can get them back in the works. Jim, how are you? I'll start with you. Kai, I'll get your take next, and then we'll kind of go through the ACC preview.
I'm wonderful, Matthew. I'm reeling from my diehard Brewers fandom, taking an L last night.
Tough.
Really, really not true at all. But I'm still wearing Bucks gear because, Kai, I'm going to be riding high on the Lillard stuff until I'm proven not to be high on it, or I have a reason not to be. So media day was exciting for the NBA, and we're going to get a lot more of that for college basketball coming up. Go Hoops. It's about a month away, Kai. How about that?
Yes, we're very excited, Jim, for basketball. A month away seems unfathomable to me. It is October. I'm excited to talk about the ACC. This hat looks silly on me, but I'm going to wear it for the entire podcast. Matthew, I'm excited. Let's get going.
ACC. Yes, that's right. This is the ACC podcast. A couple of blue bloods lurk in this league, many others, 15 teams in total. And yes, Louisville will be discussed on this episode, although they don't deserve to be talked about after last year's abomination. We'll talk about if Kenny Payne maybe can get the wheels turning in year two. Teaser, Louisville fans, please stay tuned to the end of this podcast, and it will be at the very end in which you are discussed. But until that time, we will promote ourselves, promote others that promote us. First and foremost, Jay Pitty, aka Joe Pascal. Thank you for the fine work you do on the intro and outro music, the ones and twos guru himself. Please follow us on Twitter. That's at 3MW_CBB, where you will find all of the handy dandy links to the Almanac. The All Caps Almanac Volume 2 is out there. Make sure to check it out, cbbalmanac.com. We will be continuing to shamelessly pimp that over the next month and even throughout the first month of the year, as I assume many or a few of you out there may decide you want to buy it after the season tips off. But get it now. Why wait? No reason to. Don't. Yep. Please subscribe to our podcast. That's on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, among other platforms, where you can leave us a review, preferably of the 5-star variety, in which Mr. Kai McKeon will read those to you, and we'll discuss them right now. Kai.
We got one new review. Malvern Mello says, "Go Dayton Flyers." It's a great song.
Apps phenomenal.
He says, "Love the pod. Going to be a great Dayton year. Question for you. What percentage chance do you have of Dayton joining the Big East by 2030?
Well, I just saw Val Ackerman came out from the Big East and said they don't want to expand, but I feel like they say that until they have a deal in place. It's kind of like the MO. And it just kind of seems like with every other league going to 16, 18, 20, whatever, the Big East will probably have to grow. Mm-hmm. And Dayton's such a established brand, fan base, new market-ish. Ohio, not really something where the Big East is right now. I'm sure that would be top of the list if they're going to expand. So I'm going to go 60%. That might be too high, but that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah.
It has a good fit, doesn't it? It feels right. It feels Big Easty to me.
Dayton and SLU would be pretty obvious additions for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, if that ever happens.
Basketball-centric schools.
Not have Travis Ford in charge for that to happen.
SLU also a Jesuit school. I don't know if Dayton is.
That's a common theme, right? The Jesuit.
Yes.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
Education.
Kai, will Gonzaga be in the Big East by 2030?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I don't want them to, but I think it's heading towards that way.
Jesuit, no football. Makes sense, right?
Yeah. Root alignment sucks, Matt.
Yeah, I know. That's why we don't talk about it all that much on this platform, but that's our super informed and razor sharp perspective on the Dayton prognosis to Big East in 2030. And that's our last review, I believe, Mr. McKeon. Is that correct?
It is.
I mentioned the Almanac earlier. I'll mention it again because it's on the podcast teleprompter script. Please buy that. Do it right now, or do it tomorrow or the day after, but no longer. No reason to wait anymore. It's good. And please, more importantly, let us know if there's anything that you see in there that's wrong, or just any pushback you have, any feedback. We're open to that. We're trying to incorporate that behind the scenes so that can be as up to date and as fresh as possible for the season. I think that's it. Let's round it up.
Let's do it. Let's round it up. And Kai, we gave maybe Circa a free ad here, but Not all ads are free. And Roots Roundup is sponsored. And folks, it's not home field. Whoa, upset of the century. That's right.
We'll get them back, though. CBB Analytics is our new sponsor for the podcast for the season. CBBanalytics.com. What it is, it's the best 30,000-foot view of the numbers in college hoops. It truly is a very pleasant site to look at. Just analytically puts all these beautiful graphics and takes, Ken Palm's style, 4-factor stats, and makes it easy to navigate, layout, and toggle a bunch of different things for every single team across the country. More than 25 Division I coaching staffs are signed up through this season. They utilize it in their scouting reports, their game planning. It's also very useful for sports bettors out there, as we, Jim, Matt, and myself are.
Yes, that's true, Kai. I sure am.
If you're a diehard college basketball fan, I do think you're going to love this website. If you use our promo code WEAVE, you can get $40 off a subscription. There are different tiers depending what you're looking for on the site, but do check it out. It is definitely one of the cooler, visual, stunning stat sites out there, Jim.
Yeah, super customizable, and a lot of like the graphs that display each team as their logo, which obviously very aesthetically pleasing. And Matt, what do they have that we love? Conditionally formatted cells.
Yes,
green,
red,
if it's
green,
good,
spectrums, red, blue. Yes.
We adore that. But yeah, just like the customizability of it is really, I think, unique compared to a lot of the other sites you get to look at that are presenting information and not really letting you mess with it. So shout out to CBB Analytics. Excited about that new partnership we have going forward here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, their shot charts are awesome. I think it's like the coolest thing that maybe people have seen before on Twitter, but didn't really attribute that to the source. This is the source of that. I love when we have a sponsor that I was using before we sponsor them. Like, it's not like, I don't feel in any way fraudulent promoting them. But yeah, this is a great
Blue
tool.
Chew, right? For you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but since
perfect.
15, 16. So yeah, long time user.
Exactly.
But this is an awesome sign. I'm excited to call this a partner of ours, Kai.
Amen to that. All right, let's get into the news and notes here. Coaching news. Jared Grasso is on leave at Bryant. Not a lot of information out there about why this was. Kai, I'm not sure if you saw, I believe it was Kevin Sweeney that caught him in the act of like tweeting about his extension from 2 years ago that was then deleted. It was a very weird, like, why is he tweeting about this in the midst of a personal leave of absence? Maybe it's not personal. We don't know a lot of the details with this. What we do know is that Phil Martelli Jr. is taking over as the interim coach, whose father is currently the interim coach at Michigan, with Juwan Howard recovering from his heart procedure. I almost said fart procedure. Jeez, come on, Jim. Get it together. Lock it up. But yeah, Bryant, maybe not exactly the year they wanted last year. First season in the America East, but still a very talent-rich roster. Grasso's been assembling that for years and years and years, and could eventually be the big threat to Vermont in that conference.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. He tweeted actually this morning, though.
I saw that.
Time to get off Twitter. Have a 7 a.m. appointment. Love you guys. Appreciate all the texts and love from all my friends out there.
Right. Well, then
so I don't
it's
know
not
what it
a
is
health
about.
issue. If appointment makes me worried that it's a health something. So hopefully Mr. Grasso is okay and going to be fine soon. All right. Recruiting news. Relatively busy in the bottom half of the 2024 top 100. Again, we always use the consensus rankings from 24/7. Obviously, there's mix on how these guys are rated, but we're going to fly through these. A lot of big men. Center Ryan Jones headed to Virginia Tech. Emmanuel Stephen, another big man center, headed to Arizona, potentially following in the Umar Ballo, Azuolas Tubelis pipeline there under Tommy Lloyd. 4-star power forward Matthew Hodge to Villanova, and UNLV, Papa Njai, a top 100 recruit. Starting to mention UNLV's name a lot in these recruiting rankings. Now, maybe that's not going to pay immediate dividends, but clearly Kevin Kruger is starting to get his name out there in recruiting circles.
Yeah, who did the big donation today with the overhaul of the athletic facilities there? There was a big thing on Twitter about that.
Certainly didn't see it, Matt. I was too busy reading about U2's debut at the Sphere, man. Yeah, that's my
Sphere looks awesome. Right there. The Sphere looks really cool.
Looks ridiculous. Yeah. I'm going to be in Vegas this weekend, and I looked at tickets for the Saturday night U2 performance, and it's like $600 minimum plus taxes. I was like, well,
yeah, tough.
Not sure I have that in my pocket, so unfortunately not going to see it.
Good for U2. Longevity galore. Holy cow.
All right. Also have to mention combo guard Bishop Boswell, 4-star, headed to Tennessee. And Kai, also in the SEC, 4-star center Trent Burns,
Let's go.
headed to Mizzou. I saw a comment on Reddit that we were going to be pumped about this. Not so fast, because I don't like watching him play basketball yet, but he's intriguing.
I did watch some of his tape. He's going to redshirt. Let's just put it that way.
I would like him to redshirt for 3 years and never leave the weight room.
Yeah, he's 7-something feet tall, 7'2" and he weighs less than me. So I think he needs to get a couple pounds on him. The touch is there, Jim, feathery touch, but not a lot of instincts yet, and definitely no strength. But
there's one drive I saw where he did like a 15-foot like scoop layup. It's no shot. I've never seen the shot ever attempted in my life before. It's like, wow, that could be
especially
tough,
by a
tough
7'2" guy.
Yeah. It's just like one of those things where you don't need to shoot that against, high schoolers, but whatever.
The template is whatever they do with Connor Vanover this year. And Burns even mentioned that in his commitment. It was like, they have a guy that's like me. Problem is he's supposed to be a shooter and he shot like 27% from 3 in EYBL. It's like, well,
projects well though, Jim. So
projectable indeed. Yeah. Once he's strong enough to get it to the rim, then he'll make more threes. All right. Sorry, that was mean. Go Mizzou. Go Tigers. Next up, talking waivers here. We mentioned Woody Newton to George Mason last week, getting his waiver. KK Robinson getting a 2-time waiver, formerly of Arkansas and Texas A&M. He's going to be playing at Little Rock this year, along with a couple other down transfers. That roster might be surprisingly talented for some. But again, Kai, this is kind of like this indicator to us. The eyebrows are going up. Are there going to be more 2-time waivers than we expected?
I guess. Yeah. I was pretty pessimistic a few weeks ago, even thinking all these guys were going to get denied, because that's kind of what the NCAA hinted at. And now it appears they're putting a bit of a nuance into it. So I'm guessing it's a paperwork thing behind the scenes in certain reasons, yada, yada, yada. I'm glad this is happening, I guess, though, at the end of the day.
Yeah, Matt, I did see, again, Kevin Sweeney, double shout out here, floating the idea that maybe proximity to home is a big part of these. I believe both Newton and Robinson are within like 50 miles of their hometown. That might have something to do with it. But, that has never been explicitly outlined, especially in this wave of waivers, as something that the NCAA was going to look at. So that might just be happenstance compared to, it's a small sample. It's only two guys here. All right, injuries. Got to mention, Kai, the heartbreaker of the week. Out of the Big East, that would be Butler Blue, a torn CCL, aka doggy ACL, for the beloved, adorable mascot of the Butler Bulldogs. My childhood dog tore both of her ACL/CCLs, had fishing line in her knees. Hopefully Butler Blue bounces back here.
I hope so. And now he has like doggy bronchitis, I guess, so they couldn't get
delayed his surgery.
Yet.
Yep. I know.
It's
terrible.
such a shame. I know. He's such a good dog. He's such a good boy. Very soft.
Stay resilient.
Surprisingly soft.
Stay resilient, Blue. We're rooting for you here. Matt, the other actual big news on the court, big news. Donovan Clingan, the towering 7'2" sophomore at UConn, has a foot strain. They sound like UConn sounds like they expect him back in time for the season. It's not like a broken foot or anything, but still, foot injuries for very tall players, consistently an issue. Do we think this is going to hamper Clingan and by extension UConn this year?
A little bit, kind of worried. I'm I think I've been burned too many times over the years of like, guy has an injury and I expect him to come back fully healthy and just crush. And usually with big guys and injuries below the kneecaps, I don't know. It usually a little worried about it. We'll see. Hey, maybe it's a one-time thing. I'm sorry, but find out. A little bit concerned. Yeah,
it sounds like they're being very conservative, which is smart.
Good.
Like no reason to rush him.
Do that.
Yeah. UConn, your most important games will be in March, pretty much no matter what this year. So make sure he's healthy for that. That's what matters. Suspensions and dismissals. A couple to mention here. Jose Perez, gone from West Virginia. One of the few guys that did not enter the transfer portal after Bob Huggins was let go, but now he has parted ways. Is an academic issue, seemingly. Kai, Mr. Perez's message was far less amicable than Josh Eilert and the universities. Was like, hey, we wish him well. And Perez's was one giant run-on sentence spouting anger at everybody.
Yeah, summary was it's BS that he's not eligible.
Every player thinks that.
He mentions himself in the message that he's 25 years old and he's graduated college. Correct. Go play pro basketball. You can play in so many countries, man. Just go.
Yeah, that mid-post game will be deadly in like the Israeli second division or something. Go dominate.
He can play a lot of places. He's a good player, but he hasn't played for 2 years, as he pointed out. And it's like, okay, get out of college. Like, go.
You think Timmy Kraft will welcome him back at Gardner Webb? Little boomerang back to
he wouldn't be eligible, right?
Yeah, I think I think eligibility is a real problem for Mr. Perez.
Yeah.
And Arterio Morris gone at Kansas. Good riddance. See ya. Hope you're never in college basketball again. Finally arrested and charged with rape. So get out of here. Other random news and notes. There was a UConn article, Kai, that I just wanted to bring up that was like, do they really even need Cooper Flag? I'm like, okay. This just is just like, it's whenever teams don't get the recruit they want, there's like this big, we never wanted him anyway. Like, the number one recruit doesn't win national titles. We won without a highly ranked freshman, et cetera, et cetera. You want Cooper Flag. Stop it. This is ridiculous. I don't like when fan bases and writers do this of like, the guy didn't come here, likely not going to come here. Here's why he's not important anyways.
Yeah. Silly. Yeah, silly. It's all
UConn's on my UConn's fan base is on my hot seat watch list. We'll worry about what this turns into after last year.
Yeah, to the writer's credit, the like second last paragraph is, hey, would it be cool if he came here? Yes. Would it be awesome if he was the first number one pick UConn said? Yes. Like, or maybe not the first number one. I think Emeka Okafor. No, he went 2. But like there was a little bit of, trying to cover a little CYA, Kai, as we call it in the accounting business.
Sure.
But just the general theme of the article, silly. We don't need that.
Yeah. Clicks.
All right, Matthew, that's it for the roundup. We got 15 teams in the ACC. Let's get to that.
The ACC. Let's do it. Do you guys get that too? Why am I just not getting that? The old Amber Alert?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It'll be soon for everybody. There's an emergency alert system that's going to go off in a couple minutes for everybody's phone. So,
yeah,
good.
Just
tough timing. Just disrupted my flow rhythm. And a 3, 2, 1. And this is the ACC preview portion of our podcast. Jeff Goodman previewed this for our all caps almanac. We'll go through his rankings, make fun of them, but largely I think he did a pretty good job. Go through his awards, kind of talk about what some of the coaches told him, some nuggets. But let's just talk about just, do we have
any overarching narratives? Do we have any overarching narratives here on the ACC?
Yes, we have a million. Where do you want to start? John Shire, year 2, all the hype. UNC, are they good? Are they going to stink again? Is Hubert Davis going to have a job next year? Virginia, are they going to climb up the ladder a little bit? Louisville, will they win a game? Will they look even moderately, remotely like an ACC team this year?
Hey, they won 2 games last year, Matt.
I know they didn't win 2. How did they win 2? I thought they won 0. I guess they kind of caught people.
They sent Clemson out of the NCAA tournament last year.
Clemson and Georgia Tech.
Clemson is a storyline, Jim. I think a lot of hype, I think, this preseason. One of the more Jekyll and Hyde teams last year. Won a ton of close games, but certainly very intriguing. I think Brad Brownell is a coach that's always kind of overly ridiculed but just kind of quietly is, at the top of the leaderboard or in the upper half of the standings every year. And I think the overall theme for me, Jim, macro, is there's a lot of teams in the middle of the mush that I think have some intrigue to climb a little higher. I think it's going to be a very bubblicious type of conference this season, which I think puts a ton of pressure on these squads in the non-conference, because once you get into conference play, your leverage for the at-large committee kind of diminishes. So I think how good a lot of these teams like your Clemsons, your Syracuses, which have a huge range of outcomes, I think, Virginia Tech, NC State, even Boston College, Pitt, Georgia Tech, how well do they do in the non-con, and how much can they stack some equity before conference play begins? That's where I'm looking at, Kai. What's your eyebrow raiser as you look at this 15-team behemoth of, it's a lot of meh. It's a lot of meh.
I'm jumping in, Kai, because I want to talk about that non-conference. Just real quick look back at last year. The ACC as a whole was 71-99 against the spread in non-conference games. That's a hair above 41%. And I think everybody's like, well, yeah, because Louisville sucked and Florida State sucked. Virginia was 3-7. UNC was 3-7-1. Clemson was 4-8. Like, it was just a bad league against the spread last year. A lot of teams underperformed relative to expectations. Versus Q1 and Q2 opponents in the non-conference, the ACC was 21-34, just like the 9th best of all conferences. That includes Mountain West, American. It was just a down year in that non-conference performance, Matt, which sets up less opportunities in the league, et cetera. You can't really, it's kind of like a zero-sum game when you're playing each other. So like you said, have to be a lot better in the November and December months this year.
Yeah. Pac-12 and Mountain West were both, by the numbers, Ken Palm's conference ranking numbers better last year than the ACC. And I think, objectively, I would agree with that. Obviously, when you have a lot of teams, Kai, you can.
But Miami made the Final Four. Okay,
yeah, Kai. I know Kai hates Miami. Kai, I'm curious to talk about.
I don't hate Miami, but yeah, I'm excited to talk about that as well. Yes,
I agree. It's still kind
of
awards.
League, yeah,
do the awards. A lot of Dukies on these first two teams. I guess it's a lot of blue in general, but Tyrese Proctor, the kind of blinking green light breakout guy that everyone thinks is going to be, first team, second team All-American. I'm in that camp, by the way. So we'll talk about.
We're going to talk about that when we get to Duke. We're going to talk about that.
Reese Beekman back for Virginia, stellar defender, growing, evolving offensive contributor. I think he's going to be a stud this year too. Blake Hinson from the Pitt Panthers, Jeff Capel got his tush off the hot seat last year with a nice little tournament appearance. Weird roster this year. I think they'll be competitive again. I think they kind of have re-earned everyone's respect given that breakthrough. Kyle Filipowski Flip, also voted the player who scares you the most and the best prospect by our coaches poll. He was awesome as a freshman last year. Shut me up. I thought he'd be sort of a journeyman, but he was just awesome from the get-go. And then Armando Bacot back for his 12th year, double-level machine. Everyone knows what he does. If he stays healthy, he basically terrorizes front lines if you don't have anyone to bully him up front. And then to the second team, his teammate bookend RJ Davis is back. No longer joined by Caleb Love. So we'll see what RJ Davis does without Love hogging some of those shots in the backcourt. Judah Mintz of Syracuse, kind of the headliner of what could be a very enticing Syracuse team under new regime there the first year behind, or I guess in the wake of Jim Boeheim's departure. PJ Hall, will he be healthy for Clemson? When he is a joy to watch, an absolute just an energy spark plug in every regard. And then my favorite player, and maybe all of college basketball, Quentin Post. The Post for Boston College gets a second team nod from Jeff Goodman. Thought it was a little bit of a reach, but I love it. He's awesome. We'll see how good Boston College is. And then finally, Norchet O'Meara of Kai's beloved Hurricanes. And then Wooga Poplar made breakout player, who me and Kai saw up close and personal. And we cannot believe that he's as good as he is now because we thought he was atrocious 2 years ago.
Yep, that's true.
So I don't know. Reactions to that? Kai, go to you first.
I love Quentin Post. He would not be on my all conference teams, but Goodman's higher on BC.
Cake and hoop.
I mean, Nigel Pack probably needs to be on there. I would think. I'd probably put him over O'Meara even.
If you're ranking Miami like second, then I would think probably. PJ Hall first team, right? Come on.
I would have him on first team or Blake Hinson. Yeah,
same.
Blake Hinson's fine, but and really good, but I don't think he's a top 5 player in this league.
Healthy PJ Hall. God, he's been healthy all off season. He was not last year. Like I think he's going to have a monster year.
Agreed.
I'm worried about his health, but I agree. If he's healthy, he's better. Continue, Kai.
And then no Vatek boys, no Padula, on the all conference squad. Man, he's going to be great.
And you know who else is missing? Insert Wake Forest point guard transfer X, who is on first team every single year. So
yeah, exactly.
We'll find out whether it's Boopy Miller or Hunter Salas, but I feel like one of those guys is going to make a run.
Hunter Salas.
Yeah, I think Jeff made the right call with his new cover of the year, which was Hunter Salas. I was just reading about him today. Actually, there's a good local report about the Wake practice. Comes over from Gonzaga. And you're right. I think the track record with Forbes and his point guard, lead guard position is pretty, it speaks for itself. Coach of the year, John Shire. But I think it's a good leaping off point to talk about the Duke Blue Devils. What?
I'm just surprised.
Don't like it?
No,
wow.
I don't.
He has a hard time. How does he exceed expectations this year?
He has to win the conference by like 4 games or something like that to get this.
I think if he just wins the league and there's no one else that's like that good, which you could certainly see happening, I think they just give it to him. You know what I mean? Like, is there a
Damon Stoudemire?
Yeah, Damon Stoudemire is my pick, just because I think there's such an obvious path for a massive improvement. Because you look at the record, would you believe it if I told you that Boston College was 9-11 last year in the ACC and Georgia Tech was 6-14, Notre Dame 3-17? I mean, I think Micah Shrewsbury has an upside case there too. I just think his roster is horrific.
Was 8-12.
8-12 too. Yeah,
Georgia
really.
Tech was 6-14.
Again, Clemson and Pittsburgh 14-16. Let's talk Duke.
Let's do it, Matthew. Your Blue Devils.
The Blue Devils, I mean, the talent in terms of, the mix of young talent and proven veteran performers. To to me, it's why I have them as the top team in college basketball. I know some people probably have Houston, a couple other, but
Kansas. Everybody's got Kansas.
Kansas is up there as
Purdue,
well.
Michigan State.
Purdue, Michigan State. This looks a lot like, and this is probably my Homer blue shaded sunglasses on it. It does look a lot like the 2010 roster. Just that perfect blend of old and new, the upside with the young, the stability with the old. Health will be a big factor for this team. I just want to call it out right now with Filipowski and Flip having got those bad hips, Kai. Got those. He needs like Shakir to come kind of help him rehab or something. But and then Mark Mitchell also somewhat injury prone, and we saw how much they missed him against Tennessee. Kind of that interior glue piece enforcer. They need that physicality because they did kind of miss on getting a big true 5 bouncy rim protector in the portal. If there's a hole in this roster, that's where I'll nitpick at. But what do you see, Mr. Keenan, as you look down, again, a pretty bulletproof roster 1 through 11.
Yeah, they could be the best team in the country. Is it too much of a faith to take that leap from, 18th in KenPom, Shire, year 2? I think he does make improvements in year 2, but it's not a guarantee. I certainly love the Flip Proctor rising sophomore combo plus Mitchell. I mean, that's tantalizing, of course. I like the senior leader point guard Roach. The 4-5 star is obviously very good. There's lots to like. Is shooting weakness? Yes. Can you see a world where Proctor doesn't live up to the hype? Absolutely. And can you see a world where Shire underperforms and Duke doesn't win the ACC? 100%. I don't think it's a bullet, Jim, that they're the best team in the country. The Almanac, I think, has them number 1, and I definitely have them top 3, but there are some scenarios where it goes less than ideal.
Yeah, I have them number 1 in the country, so I'll just start there. Like, there's a million reasons to be optimistic here. Like, they're not that far off from a pure recruiting ranking talent base from 2015 Kentucky. Like, I know that's probably going to make people go nuts, but like the amount of returning sophomores from a top class, incoming freshmen from a top class, and then Cauley Stein was a junior that year, Roach a senior, former 5-star recruit that like has stuck around, can be the old head on the team. It's not quite to that level. I'm going to be very clear, but the talent is super ridiculous. Matt, to answer your question or even, respond to the lack of a rim protector. Yes, I think that's a worry. I know some Duke fans are like, hey, Sean Stewart just broke our vertical leap record. He's going to be a monster. The Almanac rotation has him 9th, 4th guy off the bench. I don't know if he's really going to get that huge opportunity. And, this isn't the end all be all, but the top 4-man group in the entire ACC defensively last year was Proctor, Roach, Filipowski, and Mitchell. So not even Lively involved, but like the entire, like the lowest defensive rating of a 4-man lineup was that group. So I think they're still going to be okay defensively as long as Mitchell's healthy.
Yep.
The only other conversation I want to have is the Proctor one. I'll let you get other points in, Matt, before we get there.
I think the thing people may be missing is how you're right, Jim. I think there's 8 5-stars on this roster, right? Maybe 9. I think 8 is what I counted. So, pretty insane. So 4 of them are the rookies. And as much as I think we should acknowledge, as much as we kind of loathe about the freshman class this year, Duke has 4 5-stars up in the top 20. Like, if 2 are good to really good, that's all this team really needs to be awesome. And I'm not going to go through how they all of them individually. I kind of love the makeup and how they fit with the Roach, Proctor, Mitchell, Flip core. And obviously Ryan Young, we should probably mention his name, the human mic and drill, as we like to call him. He will get big minutes and be effective in his own fun little way.
He's solid. He is solid.
He is good. I know. Is he a defensive menace? No, he's not. I'd like to see him get less minutes because of that defensive liability issue, but he knows exactly what he does. I think he's a great role player, especially against certain matchups. Jim, tell the people why Tyrese Proctor is or is not the second coming of Jesus.
I feel like maybe it's been group thinked to death that he's going to be first team or second team All-American.
Yes.
Like he flashes a lot with the eye test. He's super talented, but there's like a narrative that he was amazing to end the year last year, Kai. And he only, I'll start with this. Over the last 10 games, Proctor averaged 11 points a game, 4 assists, 3 rebounds on 41% shooting. Another guy averaged 16 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists on 50% shooting. That's Jeremy Roach. Like,
Jeremy Roach is a good player. I agree.
Clearly better than Proctor down the stretch, at least from a production standpoint and efficiency. And I feel like that's been thrown under the bus. People have forgotten about it. And Proctor scored 20 points 0 times last year. Not a single time did he hit 20 points. He hit 15 only 6 times. Like, that's not production of a first or second team All-American. I think he's that good, but we just didn't really see it last year. So I think it's a lot more projection than like automatic assumption, which is kind of what it's become.
Yeah, and I think the positional thing, because I think he'll play more point, where we'll kind of lead ball handler, and he's not like a really assertive dude. So that's, I think, that's what I want to see this year, Kai, is like how aggressive is he hunting his shot?
Like who's he taking possessions from? Guys. Like, I guess Roach.
Do the Dukies want Roach off the ball? I mean,
yeah, I think so. I think it's a general consensus.
In Portland, Roach was like key. You guys needed Roach.
He's a good player.
At the start of the season.
Yes.
Then he hurt his ankle, but yeah, he's not as bad as Duke fans like to think he is.
Yeah, he just hasn't become a first team All-American, so Duke fans are annoyed. And so if like Proctor doesn't, are they going to get annoyed with him this year? Like I'm curious.
Sorry, it's a lot of Duke talk. I mean, I just think the team's gonna be really good. And the John Shire factor, I mean, where is he? How convinced are you that he's a good to great coach?
Not at all.
Is the roster good enough to be autopilot? Maybe.
Yes.
We'll see. Yeah, I kind of think so too.
Should be talent-wise, yeah.
All right, let's move to a team that actually did some real damage last year in the NCAA tournament. That is the Miami Hurricanes. Jimmy Larinaga, Mr. Tilda.
Bienvenido, Ami.
He is aging like a fine wine down there in Coral Gables. Obviously buoyed by the vast allure of the location and NIL resources. But yeah, he's got that knack for just making these tournament runs. Kai, I know we sort of shirk at how annoying it is that we don't see it coming because he's just not, the Canes team isn't that great in the regular season. They haven't been the last couple of years. They've been good, not great. And then they hit this gear fueled by this insane shot making. Part of that was the brilliance of Isaiah Wong, who is no longer around, but his backcourt deputy, I guess co-pilot, if you want to call it that, Nigel Pack is back. Wooga Poplar, who me and Kai are, I think we're buying shares finally on that. And then Norchad Omir is back. It's a thin rotation, though. That's where I'll kick off the initial concern with this Canes team. It is a young bench with not a ton of backstop stability if there's an injury.
So overrated. I've seen so many people put this team top 10. Stop it. I saw the same thing last year. People putting top 10 Miami last year. Yes. I've seen multiple people have them 9 and 10. It's
That's just tournament spillover
success.
Yeah. They were down 8 with 5 minutes left against Drake.
They have entered the NCAA tournament 57 and 43 in KenPom the last 2 years.
God, the Drake game is so annoying.
They have not been an elite team either season. Larinaga is great. He's a really cool dude. He hasn't had a top 20 team since 2016. He's never had a top 10 team. Wong and Miller are huge losses. You mentioned Wong.
Two best players on the team last year. Yeah.
Yes. And Poplar and Cleveland, okay, that's their subs. Neither is as good as Wong or Miller. Cleveland is a poor man's Miller. Poplar's not as good as Wong. Pack and Omir are great, but Matt, you said the bench is thin, super young. I don't have him second in the ACC.
Yeah, I have him third. The one like pushback, I guess, with the KenPom stuff, guys, they were 0-7 against the spread as a 12-point favorite or more. Like they just sucked as a big favorite. They couldn't get any stops. They didn't try defensively. 22-8 against the spread in the other 30 games where they were, playing equal or better competition. So they definitely kind of rose up there, but I don't think the defense will be good without a jack of all trade like Miller. Cleveland's not the same caliber of player. And the depth, like Matt said, you got about 5 or 6 guys, I think, that are worth trusting here. That's going to lead to some inconsistencies during the year. They're going to rely on some freshmen, unproven guys off the bench. Yeah, the defense is probably going to be right around 100th again. And that will lead to probably ranking like 35th in KenPom. Maybe you disagree with how good they were, but I think that's where they'll land again in like advanced analytical rankings.
Mm-hmm. I'll make a bullish case for the Canes since I don't want to feel like we're piling on here. I think this team can be much better defensively. I'm not convinced, but I think they can be with the personnel, especially with Poplar and Cleveland. I think profile is maybe better defenders, but Jordan Miller was a great defender. So it's
Miller a good defender? Yeah.
Miller was amazing. It's so underrated how good he was.
I hyped up Jordan Miller since Mason. Jordan Miller's my biggest fan. I'm his biggest fan. We're both fans of each other, but anyway.
Yeah, Florida State's defense was horrible last year, so I don't know if I can really give Cleveland much of a bump there.
Yep.
But Jim Larinaga as your coach, you feel good about that, right? Like as a Miami fan, coach. You're not like you lose a couple of weird ones. If you're tournament bound, you feel good about wherever you fall that you're going to be a tough out, especially when you have Nigel Pack and the shot making that he can bring forth. So again, you like to have him and Wong both. That's kind of deadly, but still Pack can make some tough ones from anywhere.
I forgot.
I feel like I sounded super bearish, but I'm third in the ACC, and like very likely tournament team, like almost definitely. So
yeah, the tournament. I have him like
Okay.
4th in the ACC, but it's a good point, man. Drake should have beaten him in the first round, and
Drake
nobody would
scored
have
1 point.
Nobody would have him in the top 25 this year if they lose to Drake first round.
Yeah. 1 point in the final 5 minutes out of Drake. Oh my God, that was infuriating.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, yeah, hey, again, bet against Jim Leonard against your own peril. That's something I don't really advise. It's been a losing portfolio the last couple of years since he's actually had a nice clean bill of health. We moved to team number 3 in Jeff Goodman's podium. The North Carolina Tar Heels, under the direction of Hubert Davis, who Kai will wax poetic about him here very shortly. It's an interesting roster, definitely a reset, so to speak. Transfers galore. They should have 4 that are within their top 7. Cormac Ryan, shooter from Notre Dame, Stanford. He's been all over the place. Harrison Ingram from Stanford, former 5-star recruit. Did not pan out super well in his first year in Palo Alto. And a couple other of, fringe pieces from West Virginia, Jalen Withers from Louisville. That team didn't win anything last year. Doesn't really excite me. But you have RJ Davis and you have Armando Bacot. Whatever you put around those two, that's sort of gravy, but that's an awesome starter kit to being a really good basketball team, Kai. I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, if the roster was in different hands, they'd be much higher for me, at least. I just don't trust Hubert Davis whatsoever. How can you after last season? The case can be made that they're in better situation without Love. Maybe they function better. Maybe RJ Davis can be the alpha by himself in the backcourt, play through Bacot more. How good is Cadeau? Reclass point guards have a really bad track record, especially recently in the NCAA. That's a fact. So it's not a guarantee he works out very well. And he's supposed to be the starting, point guard or 2 guard if you want Davis to play point. I think Ryan's fine. I think Ingram's totally overrated. He's proven that at Stanford, but he's a nice connector glue guy piece. The bench is solid, but Hubert's been weird about using his bench. So who knows if he'll even play his bench. Jim, I can see them underachieving again, basically.
Yeah, the youth with Cadeau is definitely a worry, and I really worry about their defense. Like when you took Leaky Black off the floor last year, it got bad, and you're replacing him with a 6', 18-year-old and Cormac Ryan. Like that's your solutions for the defense without one of the best perimeter defenders in the country. I'm worried there. You're going to need, I know our guy Riley Davis talks a ton about we need Bacot to play higher in the drop against ball screens and a little more intense like he did in the tournament back in 2022 when they made their big run. I'm not super sold on that, but yeah, you add Ingram and Ryan, those guys went a combined 10 and 30 in conference play last year at Stanford and Notre Dame respectively. That's not super encouraging to me. And the depth off the bench isn't that exciting. You've got a Louisville guy that went 2-18 in this league. So yeah, like Matt said, Davis, Bacot, I think makes the floor stable-ish. I don't think they'll tank to 70th. I feel pretty comfortable they'll be a 40-ish team, top 40 in the country, but yeah, I'm not positive they'll make the tournament. And I think the defense could end up being a real problem.
Yeah,
Nance was a good defender too.
Nance and Leaky Black are both fantastic, just freak athletes. Long, you just throw them out there and they're weapons on that end, especially at those positions where you can kind of cover some back end at the rim. They can defend guys on the perimeter. They can shut down shot makers. Can I throw out a weird wild card name? Paxton Wojcik's a guy I like. I think he's going to play big minutes for this team. I have an even hotter take. I think he's better than Cormac Ryan and should play more than Cormac Ryan.
He's not better than Cormac Ryan.
Paxton Wojcik got intentionally fouled a couple times in the Ivy because he can't make free throws. So I'm not super sold on him.
I think
Ryan,
he's a player.
Wasn't Ryan borderline all conference in the ACC already?
Yeah, I think he's fine. He's a shooter to me. I don't feel like he does a lot more. I know he's kind of rounded out his game to me. He's just too one-dimensional to play the key prominent role that it looks like he's expected to. Again, when you play with Davis and Bacot, I think you actually can have a lot more. You don't need a lot of dynamism from your 3rd, 4th, and 5th bananas if you are optimizing Davis and Bacot as a 1-2 punch. It kind of has an NBA type team.
I'm out.
Okay, I think he's a good player. But we should board bet how many minutes he gets. I think he should play unless Hubert Davis doesn't see his brilliance.
Yeah, I'm not board betting Hubert Davis decisions. I don't trust any of them.
They ranked 360th in minutes last year for bench. I mean, they're 5 stars all over the roster, 4 stars. It's insane.
And as Kai mentioned,
they don't develop any of them. You couldn't develop Puff
right.
Johnson at all. He's talented. I don't know.
Yeah, and even Leaky Black, it took him 7 years to turn into a solid role player. He didn't feel like it took him forever to develop there. It was mostly. Anyway, I digress. Let's move on. Let's talk Virginia, the Who's, the best developmental staff as voted by the coaches. Tony Bennett, no surprise there. Virginia's in like this weird spot as a program where the post glow, the Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome championship team, what have they been since? Certainly the COVID timing wasn't great with that. A lot of, moving parts that sort of derailed the continued success they had. They also, won a league title in a relatively down season. I think this is one of the more fascinating stories to watch there, because it's sort of a youngish team, Jim. It's not like a really old team, which I think you'd prefer with a Tony Bennett type of roster, more of a continuity, a system type of coach. And obviously in today's day and age, older is better. What do you make of this roster, which brings in some new 4 transfers? Again, will play, I think 4 of the top 6 will be transfers.
Yeah, it's not only youngish, but it's youngish in Bennett's system. Or like even Jordan Minor, hey, he's coming in 5th-year guy, but he played a 2-3 zone at Merrimack, like not even close to what Bennett plays. I still love the like defensive nucleus with Beekman, Ryan Dunn, who's going to be a just destroyer defensively this year.
Yep.
And then Minor cleaning things up at the paint. I know he's a little undersized for the ACC, but like they've had Anthony Gill dominate as an undersized forward, and 2 or 3 other guys whose names are escaping me. Like they've always had that like dominant 6'8" post defender. I think Minor can be that for them. I just am very unenthused about how they score points, Kai. Like you took Kihei Clark off the floor last year and the on-off numbers say the offense collapsed. And so like now we're handing the keys to Beekman and he wasn't able to show it. Yeah, wasn't able to show it last year. Is Dante Harris going to get a lot better? Is Andrew Rohde going to be able to elevate from the Summit to the ACC?
Yes, that's my take. Rohde's really good.
I like Rohde a lot too, but Matt, the Summit to the ACC, he's playing against much better athletes now.
Hey, but this ACC, Jim, this is not our father's ACC.
Fair. I have them second in the. I have them second in the ACC because I think the defense is going to return to top 10 levels, but the offense might limit the ceiling.
Yeah, I'm second too. Kai?
I have more questions about the defense actually. First of all, the Kihei Clark, people say addition by subtraction. I think you're totally wrong. He was a 5-year starter in Tony Bennett's system. He was so important to Virginia, in my opinion. But I do think Beekman's going to be a star. The 3 rising sophomores, Rohde, McNeely, Dunn, I think they all can play. I think Minor's very good. And the veterans, Harris and Groves, 6 and 7 in the rotation. You don't need a deeper bench than that. You're Virginia. The system's strong. The last 2 years of defense has been poor. And I don't know if Rohde is a defender, McNeely, Minor. I have a lot of questions.
Minor's defensive player of the year in the NEC.
He played in his zone.
I know. I just
think
he's got the capability.
In the NEC.
Yeah, I think he'll be good. I think he'll be what they need.
Groves is a great defender, and Rohde's not, and McNeely's not. So I don't know.
We're just bearish all over the place. We hate every ACC team, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Do we like any team?
I have Virginia at number 2, by the if they're 15-5. Bennett owns this league. They'll do fine.
Yeah, he knows how to win.
After they beat Duke last year, if you filter by the date range, I think it's February 12th and on, they were 77th in the country. Like they were just horrible down the stretch. Couldn't really figure out how to get things going. Matt, I'm intrigued by Leon Bond. We saw what happened when they redshirted DeAndre Hunter, kind of similar level recruit, mega athlete, redshirt freshman. I think he could be a major contributor. I think he looked really good in there. I believe they went on a foreign tour this offseason. So we'll see.
I was just going to ask you, who is I feel like there's always a freshman or rising sophomore that I don't hype up enough, and we hear about it on the Twitter wave. So I'm glad we threw one courtesy mention. Good.
Bond. Yep.
Checking all our boxes here. And I like McNeely. I think he's a shooter mainly, but I think there's some evolution. Player. I think there. Yeah, I think he can be a starter, obviously. When you have
talent level's good with the way Bennett has recruited. It's just young, and he doesn't usually like to rely on freshmen for big roles. So we'll see about Gertrude and Buchanan, et cetera.
And I love Beekman. I think he's a real player. I think he's got a lot more offensive potential than he gets credit for. And he has an absolute glove. He's probably the best defender in college basketball. Is that too far?
Perimeter, I'm okay.
Perimeter defender. Sorry, perimeter. Yeah, perimeter defender.
You could say he's up there for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll take Kalkbrenner over him. If I'm building defense.
Kalk at the rim for sure. And we continue. Number 5, Clemson. And this is where it starts to get mushy. Although you could argue, wouldn't be surprised if you saw UNC or Virginia slip into.
Yeah, you could say it's mushy at 2 if you want.
It's just mushy all the way through. Hardest team to prepare for is what the coaches believe about Clemson. Just another nugget, another feather in Brad Brownell's cap that we've just historically underrated him. It's an enticing roster, right? I mean, they bring a lot of the key pieces back from last year, but man, it's such a it's such a weird team to evaluate last season because they had some of the injuries, they had some weird streakish stretches, and they won a ton of close games. And I think their record is a little misleading in terms of how good they are, relative to other teams outside this league. That's why I think if you're a Clemson fan or a Virginia fan, or a Miami fan, I think sometimes there's a dichotomy between the record and how good you are relative to other teams in the analytic metrics. But I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it's just win, baby. And that's what Clemson has done over Brownell's, tenure. Jim mentioned PJ Hall's health. If he is healthy, this is a tournament team for me. If he is not, and I am embarrassed that he will be, I think there is bullish. I think there's a bubble-ishous downside.
No, he's bearish. He doesn't think he'll be healthy.
I'm sorry. I'm bearish.
He's been healthy all season. There's
totally
articles about how healthy he is. He went through the NBA draft process healthy.
He's super healthy.
I will bet large sums of money he misses like 3 games this year and has nagging stuff. He's been hurt like his whole career. Like it's a documented thing. He's had like chronically injured things. So we'll see.
I bet he plays at least 28 games this year, Matt.
Board bet done.
I hate board betting injuries.
I'm going under. Yeah, I don't root for injury.
I have faith in PJ.
I retract the board bet.
Good.
To Matt's point, they finished 6 games better in the ACC last year, 3 spots higher in Ken Pom. So it definitely some analytics stuff. They didn't improve that much, but I'm a huge fan of this team. Hunter Tyson was a big deal, but this team's old. They can shoot. Every single person can shoot. Yeah. Hunter is so underrated. Their point guard. I think Hall's an all ACC guy. Hemingway's a gunner. Heidberger's a gunner. Gerard's a gunner. Clark Schieffelin, good solid front court depth around Hall. Brownell ain't bad. I'm in on Clemson, Jim. I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, I have not a single question about the offense. Like it's going to be very good. You add Gerard, who's like I launched from 30 feet, going to give even more spacing. I mean, I know they lost Tyson, but it is a little weird that last year's only 82nd nationally in offense per Ken Pom with all that shooting. But I think more Hall and more healthy Hall is going to help a lot with that. And I just kind of like the rotation pieces they've got now. There's a little better depth. Matt, the question is defense. When I look at the roster, Joe Girard hasn't been a part of a good defense, and I'm not sure he's going to be here, but Brad Brownell and Billy Donlin is a pretty good starting point coaching wise on the sideline. Right. So I feel like it'll be competent enough. This seems like the year they kind of make up for not making the tournament last year. Don't drop the silly games to Loyola and South Carolina this year. And I think this is a tournament team as well.
He has some defensive potential. Jack Clark, we like Jack Clark. I think he's a nice Swiss Army
really
knife
solid,
piece.
Actually.
Yeah, I think he's a good little piece. I think he probably starts, and then
if he's healthy,
Ian Schiff. You're right. Jack Clark also chronically injured, and then Schieffelin's also kind of a good, glue guy, garbage guy, so to speak. I like the roster. I like Brownell. It's more of a bet on Brownell as being continuously underrated. If this team's fully healthy, which is the big if, tournament team and the Tigers. And they guard just well enough because Hall is so important to the defense too. That's where I think people miss. He's so versatile on offense, but his rim protection, his rebounding is pretty.
Where do you guys have them in the ACC in your ranks? I have them fifth, just like Jeff.
Fifth also. Okay. Yeah,
fifth. Yeah, fifth. Fifth.
Here comes the Matt. Matt's gonna go to bat for Syracuse now.
I almost put Syracuse because I like this roster. Adrian, I don't. We'll find out if Mr. Autry can coach basketball, but I'm inclined to think he can. And I'm just glad that it's a new breath of fresh air. It feels like the Andy Dufresne scene in Shawshank when he gets out of the shit tunnel. It's just a breath of fresh air. It's something new, right? A little more man to man. They've talked about that. They have some real talent. Talk about talent. Judah mentioned JJ Starling, Benny Williams, 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. Chance Restry coming in. Isn't he a fringe 5-star? From Auburn, big time talent on this team. Now you go through Starling and Williams haven't exactly popped yet. But I kind of like the approach that Red Autry took in year one. Let's just cobble some talent together. We're going to play a new system and just kind of see what happens. And I think the upside is very, very high for this team. Now the downside certainly is low, but in a league where there's a lot of mushiness, as we've talked about at length here, Kai, even if Syracuse doesn't look like we think it could look, I think they're still going to battle in the middle of the pack, and maybe they get enough big wins and they're bubble-licious by the time we talk about this team next March.
High variance. I buy the upside though, because Menson Starling could be one of the best backcourts in the country, or they could flame out. And you also have Chris Bell, by the way, who was pretty good last year as a freshman. I like Williams too. Lots of upside all over the bench. Still a pretty young team. It's mostly underclassmen. So if you want to, get behind something, it's talented underclassmen, but they're still young. How good is Autry? We don't know. How effective will the switch be to a man or predominantly man, apparently, defense? We don't know. They certainly have length on defense. They should be a good defensive team. But it's a very unknown squad, I would say, Jim. High variance.
Yep, I'll say the same thing these guys said differently. Ultimate ceiling floor team is what I wrote down. First thing, I just having two sophomores in the backcourt. Starling was mega inefficient for a terrible team last year. And now, like you said, there's changing systems. Like think about Wisconsin football, switching from grinded out run game to the spread. That's gone kind of poorly. And there's a lot of choppiness to it. I think that could happen defensively here as well with a lot of guys that were recruited into 2-3 zone. So I'm not totally certain. The rim protection too, Matthew. Take out Jesse Edwards from that team. I'm not an Akeem McLeod guy, not a Munir Hema guy. It's going to be up to whether the perimeter group is as incendiary from deep and getting to the basket as they can be.
Yeah, McLeod's 7'5", but yeah, I mean, I watched him. He's sort of a little gimmick. You can kind of scheme against him. It's just a wild team. Like the roster, it's like you can mention guys, even down to I don't know, Kyle. It's a weird. There's depth, right? There's optionality. Maybe a couple of these guys pop off the bench. Autry's been very coy about saying what he's going to do schematically. I think he's been pretty. He said he's going to play man, but more like 30% man to man. I think we'll still see some of the zone. I just want to see a full wholesale change. That's what I'd like to see. I don't know if we see that. I think Autry has this. I want to respect Boeheim and not completely throw the baby out with the bathwater, as we used to say in consulting.
I also think it's kind of smart not to do that, though, too. Because like Jim said,
too much of a change.
Guys in the system already, just, a gradual change.
A gradual change into that. No further thoughts on the orange. Let's stay with another orange tinted team. Virginia Tech, number 7 in Jeff's rankings. And again, we are getting mushy here. Mike Young, we love him. It's been a kind of a close but no cigar type of team the last couple of years. They can shoot the crap out of it. Champagula, Hunter Couture. The loss of, Justin Mutz, obviously, Grant Basile up front, who was much better than I think we thought. That's my concern. The front court is really, really weak. And that was sort of the backbone of this roster, dating back to Keve Aluma, and then Mutz, obviously, last year. So that's my concern. Yes, they can shoot. Yes, they can execute. Yes, they're well coached. Are they athletic enough up front? Robbie Baran certainly bodes some confidence from Northwestern after being on an awesome defensive team last year, Kai. Len Canna gets some breakout love. I don't know. What's your take on this team?
Shooting galore. I think this team was pretty unlucky last year, too. They were a lot better than their record was. Padula Couture is really underrated. Rodney Rice, I think, is going to be key. Barron, like you said, Matt, stretches the floor. That's great. More shooting. I know Mekhi Long can shoot a bit too. I don't know if Lynn Kidd's good. He's a senior and he hasn't played much. I don't think he really is. And losing Mutz really does hurt. I think Poteet gets more playing time this year than Kidd.
I like Poteet with you there.
He's pretty physical. He's played big minutes before. Is Tyler Nickel good from North Carolina? We have no idea because Hubert Davis won't play him. There's upside. I think they bounce back. I actually have them 6th in the ACC. I think they're ahead of Syracuse.
I got them 10th, and it's narrow margins here, so I'm not super down on them, but I do have them 10th. So if you want to come at me, that's where I've got them. Defense, big questions without Mutz. He was the do everything, put him on the best player. He also led the team in assists by a lot. They played completely through him, run a whole bunch of the little guards off actions, and Mutz can either attack in isolation from the mid post or hit the right cutters. I don't think they have a guy that can do that. Mekhi Long, Barron, I don't think has the same IQ skill set as a passer. The big guys, it's kind of Clemson adjacent to me where I trust the offense, but there's no PJ Hall with this team. So I'm a little bit lower. I trust Mike Young and maybe they got, like I said, unlucky. That little stretch without Couture last year was part of their 7-game losing streak. And that kind of sunk their season. They started 11-1 and looked pretty good, but I'm just a little bit tepid on the Hokies this year, unfortunately.
Hi, Rodney Rice. That's my X factor here.
Yeah.
Thought he was nice when he finally played. He was hurt mostly last year. Former top
Rice
50,
nice.
Top 75 guy. Yeah, Rice
is nice, says Matt.
He adds some this team lacks some thump, some some pace without him in there. So I hope he stays healthy this year.
I mean,
Couture, Darius Maddox missed like 13 games. They were really hurt last year.
Not a lot of athleticism on this roster.
Exactly. It's a very unathletic roster without Rice in there. That's my concern for sure, especially up front. I have nothing else to add. NC State is number 8 on Mr. Goodman's rankings. Just tiptoed into the tournament last year. A nice little breakthrough for Keats, who's kind of been sitting right on the hot seat. It seems like finally got over the hump, clocked his, I guess got to play Creighton, which was a tough draw there. But it was a good year, I would say, for Mr. Keats and company.
The sleeper team this year, Matthew. For ACC
the sleeper
coaches.
team, I don't really buy it. I'll be honest, coaches.
I don't buy that either.
I'm not buying it for a second. You had some Mondo talent last year, and the talent this year is, I would say, a watered down version of last season. I like some of the depth, some of the versatility, but Jim, I'm trying to extrapolate where the sleeper vibes came from the ACC head honchos.
Yeah, I mean, you got 35 points a game from Terquavian Smith and Jarkel Joyner, 7 assists, almost 8. Well, basically never turned it over for as high usage as they were, relative to how high usage they were. And now you're going with Jaden Taylor and DJ Horn instead, 2 guys that, especially Taylor was on a very bad team last year. I don't think the backcourt gives them as much pop as they had last year, and that was kind of their identity. And the versatility, like Michael O'Connell, I don't want him running the Kevin Keats up-tempo offense. No, thank you. It just kind of feels like a similar version to last year, but the talent's a little lower. DJ Burns is going to dominate, but he only plays 20 minutes a game. So
yeah, but he dominates when he's in there. Fun player, DJ Burns.
Yeah, I think they kind of struggle without Smith and Joyner, who were excellent. They replace him with DJ Horn. He's fine. He's not as good as Smith or Joyner. And Jaden Taylor, who I liked at Butler, but again, he wasn't very efficient. Butler was a bad team, and he's not as good as Smith or Joyner. Diarra, Jim and I watched Diarra at Mizzou. He's good, not great. He's not that good.
Project still kind of hasn't figured it out yet.
Yeah, O'Connell game manager, Middlebrooks, MJ Rice off the court stuff. I don't know if he's healthy or good to go. I don't know.
Yeah, stepped away from the team, I believe.
Yeah. Morcell's good. Burns is good. I just think it's a slightly worse version of last year, Matt, which wasn't even a top 50 team with all the talent. So yeah, I don't buy a sleeper team either.
Yeah, and I think talent is what's needed here. Just the shot making of Smith and Joyner was next level good. Holy cow, they had some just incendiary games where it's okay, I mean, at least were they consistent? No, but they had upside. I don't see upside really with this roster. I don't know, unless you're a huge horn guy. And I'm not. And then Morcell was a huge beneficiary to what Turk and Joyner did last year. Maybe he steps up. Yeah, and DJ Burns is a fun piece, but will they defend? We talked about Jack Clark. They really missed, or they needed some interior thump last year. They didn't really get it. And I guess they think Jar is going to be that guy, but you're right. You guys saw Jar. He's not, doesn't really scare me at all. So consensus sour tone for the Wolfpack, unfortunately, this year.
Yeah.
And that's all we have to say. Let's carry forth. Number 9, Boston College. Jeff, number 9, Boston College.
Jeff,
I love BC. And I love BC. I do, but 9th.
Most egregious rating.
But let's defend them here real quick. They finished 9-11 last year in this league. And there's a real chance this league is just as bad as last year. I think it's a little better, but not much. So you can certainly follow the logic of this team could be better than it was last season. So why can't they finish as high or higher than last season? And Quentin Post, the Michael Jordan of the ACC, is fully healthy. He's doing what he does. And we like Earl Grant, right? He is a do more with less, but is he a ceiling raiser? I don't know. That's my concern with Boston College. But the roster they have coming back, which is kind of the Earl Grant trajectory, I think this is a tight range of outcomes, unlike Syracuse and some of the other teams. I think it's going to be a pretty solid, feisty team, but more in the bottom of the totem pole. Jim?
Yeah, depth isn't good, and that destroyed them early in the year last year when they had a bunch of guys out, including your boy, Mr. Post, which you're super confident he's going to be healthy all year?
I probably should.
Yeah, we'll see. Point. We'll see about Post. But they were much, much better when he played last year. +9 per 100 possessions per Hoop Explorer. When he's on the court, -6 per 100 without him. It's like a 15-point gap there adjusted for competition. He was really, really important. They were terrible as a big favorite in the non-conference with all their injuries, losing at home to Maine or almost losing home to Maine. They had some bad performances early. Better in ACC play, but Kai, they started ACC play 174th in KenPom and they finished 170th. It wasn't like they meteorically took off and covered a bunch of spreads and were great. So it just kind of seems like without much depth, especially in the backcourt beyond Zachary and Claudel Harris, who was on a sub 300 KenPom team last year, I don't buy that high of a ceiling for them.
I like Harris. That's my 2 cents. Sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
I'm going back and like every single season outside of COVID, they have lost to at least one mid-major in non-conference play.
They should have lost to. They should have lost to Cornell.
Again.
They should have lost to Detroit. By the way, remember that game? They should have probably lost that game.
Yeah.
Lost
And
to
they did
Maine,
lose to Maine, New Hampshire, and Tarleton.
New Hampshire.
But then they waxed George Mason, which made no sense. I guess that's another point in your feather for the Kim English stuff. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, Post is legit good. I really like Zachary too. And they do return a lot of the roster last year. Harris, TBD on how effective he is. Chuck South guys, we know it's tough to tell how they translate.
Yeah, look what Christian Keeling did going to the ACC.
Still,
yeah.
I can see the upside.
League Bay's good. League Bay's good, right? Don't we like him?
Yeah, solid
upside there. Good,
he was out
prospect.
early, one of the injuries. Yep.
I can see the upside, but I wouldn't count on it. There's no Wake Forest is going to finish above them, and I would bet a lot of money on that.
Yep, I'm with you, Kai. I'll board bet Mr. Goodman with you.
I put BC 12th for what it's worth.
What do I have them?
I have 12th as well.
Lower. Yeah.
Yep. I'm 12th.
I'm at 13th. No, okay, I don't like that. I'm going to go 12th.
They could be 13. They could be 13.
I can't be the postman.
Yeah.
I can't be the postman and have them lower than Kai and Jim. So I'm going to make some adjustments here to my ratings. I think there's a chance where they're actually better than that. I do. Again, low ceiling, high floor.
They were
maybe see a lower floor.
They were the third worst team by KenPom's standards last year. Worse than Notre Dame.
They're so bad early, but yeah, that's just like they didn't perform well enough in the ACC.
Yeah,
against expectations to suddenly show that they were a different version. That's what concerns me.
Yeah. Yeah, we still have 6 teams to talk about. It's funny. We get to Boston College, it's like, all right, and now we're winding down. So it's like, no, we're still chugging through. No, it's more of an indictment on the league at large, not Mr. Goodman. Don't say that, Kai. Wake Forest, a more exciting team to talk about. I did some reading on their local beat this morning. Hunter Salas, one of the Gonzaga defectors, I think getting a ton of love, and rightfully so, just with the track record Forbes has with grooming these lead guards, point guards out of nowhere.
And he was already awesome defensively for Gonzaga.
And he was an amazing defender for Gonzaga. You can better believe he'll be a better defender here. And I think that's kind of the theme with this team that Forbes is trying to exude. It's getting back to more of his ETSU roots, defensive-minded. I don't know. I feel like he said it the last couple of years though, and it's like now they're still playing super duper fast and they're scoring and they're not really defending. And there are some holes defensively, but I think overall this team should be better defensively. And if they're healthy, I think they're just a more consistent team, which is what escaped them last year. The final thing I'll add here is that the loss of Bobby Klintman, who ended up going to the draft late, and then the potential no waiver get of Efton Reed, kind of a double whammy because that really cripples their frontline depth. Which I thought was going to be a real strength for this team. I like Marsh a lot, Jim. I just like a little more athletic rim protection upside. And I just don't know if those two dudes do it for me in that regard.
Yeah, you have to love Marsh, Matthew, because what did he shoot from the floor last year? 88%.
88%.
Know your role king. Just a know your role king. Pass me the ball, I will dunk it, or I will pass it back to you. Yeah. A quick shout out to Forbes' wife, by the way, Janetta, who had the stroke, and they're playing a charity exhibition game against Alabama where all the proceeds are going to stroke research at Wake Forest. Just want to give a quick mention of that. But yeah, I mean, I like this team. Kind of hinges on Monsanto's health for me. As of early September, he had like a little bit of setback. They're hoping he's going to be ready for the start of the season, but I mean, he just like completely opens the court. He was second nationally in 3-pointers taken per 100 possessions per Bartorvik, and he shot like 41% on them. He has unlimited range. If he can help open the court for Hildreth's drives and Salas kind of taking over and Marsh dunks, then it works out. So I'm just kind of waiting to see his health before I really jump on with Wake Forest. But I think the offense will be good. Defense will be a little better, but same concerns as Matt.
He's not finishing 10th, man. I'm actually a huge fan of this roster. I think Hildreth.
Wow, look at you.
I think Hildreth, Monsanto, Salas is a really good backcourt. I think Salas can be really, really good this season. And I like Carl and Marsh up front. And Boopy Miller.
I know.
Yeah.
If he's healthy.
I don't think he was ever hurt.
Yeah,
I just don't think he wanted to play.
Just like I'm out on Central Michigan.
Hopefully Reed gets eligible. That would really help, obviously. I think this team's tourney caliber better than NC State.
I think they make the tourney if they get Reed. If not, I can't quite see them getting there. But yeah, valid.
Okay. You kind of sold me there, Kai.
Convincing.
We'll worry about depth and
They made
health.
the tournament last year. They did not.
No, they did not. Remember they got waxed by Rutgers? That was when I kind of threw them into the shoot for.
Wow, actually, Forbes is not made it yet. They should have made it 2 years ago. That was a big.
He got screwed. He's had some tough luck again, like with the player stuff. He really has had some a tough draw. But yeah, let's guard some people this year, Steve. That's kind of I was kind of your thing at UTSU. Let's D up. Moving to number 11, down in Tallahassee, the 850. Shout out to T-Pain. Florida State, man, Leonard Hamilton, Bunny Colvin, Kai.
Bunny Colvin.
Your boy. How much are we going to give him the Jim Larinaga excuse injury card that we gave Jim for like 3 years running, which has turned out to be a prophetic pass as he's kind of bounced back and really rallied the last few years. At Florida State, though, man, like, I don't know. At some point, I think I'm into this team a little bit this year. I think there's bounce back potential, but there are holes in this roster that's no longer as talented or as proven as his rosters of years past.
Yeah.
And then schematically, I just think they're sort of lost in no man's land without an identity. I just don't know what this team is. When I watched them last year, I had no clue what they were trying to do on either side of the ball. Like, even defensively, I didn't feel good about Florida State on that end, and that's a concern for me.
Yeah, and the roster is not as good as like Larinaga's bounce back season. I don't know. Hamilton might be done. I really thought they'd bounce back from 105, finishing 105th in KenPom, and they finished 205th. They were a lot better than that for parts of the year. And we had some covers of this team. We definitely bet on this team last year. I think Caleb Mills is kind of a team cancer. I think that's addition by subtraction, getting rid of him, frankly.
I don't disagree. I agree.
They're long and athletic per usual. Can they score? They lack shooting, but they have a ton of athletes. They just need to get the defense back to being elite, which there's no reason it can't be with this roster. They have the pieces. And maybe Baba Miller breaks out. Everyone kind of forgot about him.
He will.
He was so bad when he got eligible, though.
Yeah, he was bad, but he didn't have much time to ramp up, and now he has a full off season. People were all over him going into last season. So we'll see. Skeptical. I can see the upside. I'm not ready to bet on it yet.
Yeah, I think there is some talent drain on both the roster and the sideline that has hurt this team. Gates has been gone for 4 years now, and C.Y. Young is not reeling in like star recruits like Scotty Barnes anymore. Like that's like the last good Florida State team had a top 5 NBA draft pick.
Point.
This one does not. The defense was just nightmarish last year. Now Jalen Gainey back from torn ACL, helpful. Cameron Fletcher back from torn ACL, hopefully helpful. There's a little more depth to this team. I think they really struggle with that, like trying to play the way they wanted to play. But Matt, they still forced the number 1 rate of isolation in the entire country per synergy. Like that's a Hamilton go-to, and they still got nuked defensively. Yep. So just don't think the individual talent is there. The X and O savvy on the sideline, maybe not quite to that level anymore either. I have them 13th. I just don't think they bounce back up. Yeah.
13th. Wow.
Yep.
Man,
they bring in
and Primo Spears stinks, by the way. Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, is he? I thought he's hurt or he's not eligible.
He needs the 2-time waiver.
He needs a waiver.
I think they should hope for not.
Please put his waiver. Yeah, put it at the back of the pile. We don't need to. No rush on that review there, NCAA.
Yeah, small guy can't defend, takes bad shots all the time. Yeah, sign me up. Great.
Did Primo Spears like lead the country in minutes last year? He was nice.
Basically.
Yes.
How?
Yeah, he was. It was his crazy world. That's a his world type of league guard. Yeah, I don't want him running my show. I actually like Jalen Worley. I think Jalen Worley's actually a nice little piece. I think he can be a good point guard if they just give him the keys. There's some defensive upside here. I think there is. Yeah, Gainey healthy is big from Brown, and Jameer Watkins from VCU, obviously a defensive factory. And he can do some stuff on offense. It just doesn't. It's a new normal for Florida State. It really
is. There's like 5 guys on this team that have torn their ACL because Watkins.
Yeah, Watkins like twice, right?
Yeah,
or no, just once for him. Twice. Just once for him.
Once.
Okay,
The other guy was twice.
Yeah. Yep, okay. Yeah. Again, we continue. Georgia Tech. Yes. Palpable excitement about the Damon Stoudemire era down in hot Atlantic High. We can wax poetic about why everyone is obsessed with him as a coach. I mean, what he did at Pacific. There's a reason why he was plucked by the Celtics. And there's many Celtics people that think he was a key part of what they were doing. And then he left and there was some turbulence. And now he's at Georgia Tech. And he has a roster that is, I would say, ragtag, but deep. And it looks a lot like the Pacific roster that we all probably took for granted before they were shockingly really good. And he just kind of beats you with lots of different pieces, unpredictability. he draws up some really good set. Like his set stuff is really good. That's kind of been why Pacific's been worse, I think, since he's left, because they kind of just let him go out there and play now. But like Stoudemire how they play is very purposeful, and they're going to play hard. There's every reason to think this team will be much better than everyone's projecting this year. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of Stoudemire. Great hire. I think he'll overachieve. It took him a bit to ramp up at Pacific, so don't expect like miracles like day one. The roster is interesting. I think Amari Abram has a lot of potential, and Terry and Kelly are fine, pieces around him. The transfers, like Claude, Reeves, Dewona, Kapara, all really, really long, multi-positional. You can clearly see there's a theme there that Stoudemire is going for. I think they could surprise a bit with that, length on D. The front court depth's very thin, and they don't have like a true like burly like center type of player unless his freshman's good. I don't know. I know nothing about him.
No, he's like more
skinny
like
as well,
thin, bouncy kind of thing. Yeah,
backcourt depth is excellent, great backcourt. So I think they overachieved, Jim, but I'm not calling them a tournament team preseason here.
Same. Yeah. As I know I mentioned Stoudemire, coach of the year, maybe at the top, but as I prepped for this pod, I was like, you know what? I think I'm probably a year early with this team, like getting excited about Stoudemire. Like this is the same core that I bet to win less than 5.5 ACC games last year. As much as I love Abram, he's still only a sophomore, didn't get to play a huge role for Ole Miss, and that Ole Miss offense was terrible last year. So I think maybe I got overzealous with some of the pieces. We kind of have settled on Koisi Reeves not really being a winning basketball player either. I like the returners, but again, just not that good of a team last year. So Matt, I have him 9th, but I think I had him 7th before prepping for this pod, and I knocked him a bit.
Okay, I actually think I might stick with my 7th. Miles Kelly was low-key a
7th.
Star. Mm-hmm. Again, 7th is 10th is 5th is it's all the same shit. Who cares? No team in this league's that.
I just don't even think they're in the same tier as
really
the middle group.
Man, I'll say this. I think Miles Kelly would be the best player on like the last 3 teams we just talked about. To what he did down the stretch when they actually were winning games. I think they won 6 of their last 9.
Yeah, because we had under 5.5 ACC games. You had over 5.5.
Oh, that's
and they
right.
Somehow won. It was
and they
absurd.
beat Boston College, Florida State, and Louisville as 3 of those last 4. It beat Syracuse on the road by 20. It beat Vatech at home. I don't know. I think there's actually something here. I just think the coaching upgrade is pretty massive. He also got the Kennesaw State, one of their top assistants, who obviously was key in there. I just think there's a brain. We talk about the brain drain Florida State, Jim. I think this is a brain gain
infusion. Brain gain. There you go.
Gain.
I like that.
Good.
Nice.
Fair enough, Matt. Fair enough.
But yeah, Kelly's a good player. I was shocked that he considered the NBA draft, but the fact that he was getting looks from NBA teams makes me think they saw something that maybe other teams didn't for a while. Yeah. Let's talk Pitt basketball. How about 13th? Jeff Goodman selling the Pitt Panthers after.
I'm not even this low.
I wasn't either. That's kind of harsh, Jeff.
And the story with this team is pretty simple. I mean, Capel has John Hughley, who's supposed to be the epicenter of last year's team, right? Awesome big guy, bringing all these transfer guards to surround him. And then Hughley gets hurt and sort of fizzles out. And they just rebrand this entire team around shot making and scoring. And their guards were awesome. And I thought Capel actually did a pretty nice job welding it together. All those guards, though, Kai, are pretty much gone. So the front court looks identical, but the back court looks nothing like what it looked like last year. And I'm a big Federico guy. I'm a big Graham twin guy. Fun little pieces, some upside there maybe, but are they going to, make shots? Are they going to operate an offense effectively? Ishmael Leggett, he was part of that Rhode Island disaster last season. They have a freshman point guard who's a fringe top 100, although he's supposed to be really good. I think the Jalayan Lowe dude. I don't know. What's your thought on this team?
A little harsh ranking by Jeff, but I'll be honest. I kind of am going down and down every time I look back at this team. Because Capel, I don't think I'm still not convinced he's a good coach, and he has a history of not doing very well before last year. They're starting a freshman at point guard, Lowe. I don't know how good he is. He's a 4-star. Maybe he's awesome.
I think Carrington might have like the edge in the
Carrington,
race, but it's either of
love.
So one of those guys, one of the freshmen starting at point. Leggett and Austin, good mid-major players for bad teams, really bad teams. High Point and Rhode Island were bad last year. Not ACC proven. Hinson's good. Federico's underrated for sure. Diaz Graham breakouts. They're not ready to average like 15 a game. I mean, they're not that good. I just don't think this team has much juice, and I'm not convinced on Capel. So I actually am a little lower on them than I was pre-podcast here, but I still think 13th is a little low.
The Grams are so funny. Like, I think they're actually going to be good, but they were kind of gimmicky.
Homeless.
Yeah, right. Chet Homeless.
They look
ahead,
so
Jeff.
goofy. They're just like all elbows and knees. Like there's just not a lot of heft to them, but they fly around. They make some solid plays. The way they filled in for Federico in the tournament was relatively impressive. But yeah, the guard play is major question mark here. And last year, like they were so tough to guard. They were 10th nationally in spacing per shot quality, like Hinson. And then you had like Greg Elliott, Nelly Cummings, Nike Sabandi. Like you really flying around trying to figure out who to guard. I don't feel like this group has the same threat from the perimeter besides Hinson. And he's going to get less quality looks without Burton and Cummings setting him up. Yep. Now it's being a freshman point guard. So I just kind of think they regress a little bit. Expectations analytically might be a little high because they actually were decent last year and didn't tank at the end of the year like typical Capel teams. So yeah, I'm a little lower. I have them 11th. I don't think they make a repeat visit to the tournament, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's possible they brought in like Nelly Cummings, who was on a perennial winner. They brought in Greg Elliott, who was from a winning program at Marquette and was, I think, pretty much underrated. They brought in Jamarius Burton from Wichita, like legit guys at legit programs.
And Texas Tech.
And Texas Tech, right? Yeah, sorry, Texas is a better example. So yeah, back to Kai's point, Rhode Island, High Point, and freshman.
Zach Austin will have some sick ass dunk highlights.
Yeah, he can fly. Zach Austin
can fly.
He can fly. But yeah, again, more flash than substance, I would suppose. And then we're down to our final two, and I just cannot believe Notre Dame is where we talk about, or this is where we talk on Notre Dame in this podcast. But such is the new normal. Micah Shrewsbury, the guy that we love, the guy that everyone loves. What's not to love Micah Shrewsbury? What he did at Penn State. Mm-hmm. Kai, but who's playing basketball for him this year is my concern.
You and me.
I'll just give you here's the synopsis. It's 2 freshmen, 3 stars. Okay.
Including his son.
So, nepotism alarms sounding there.
Or maybe he's really good then. I don't know.
Or maybe he's good. Right. Maybe he shielded his true talent from the rest of the recruiters out there. Julian Roper from Northwestern. And then who played 21 minutes for Northwestern. And then Tate Davis and Ninji from Seton Hall and Penn State, who both kind of play. Njai, thank you. I guess a couple of freshmen are off. It's weak. It's a bad roster. It's young. It's not going to win this year. That's my take. Go.
The roster's terrible. It's a joke. It's a joke. If Shrewsbury is the only thing holding together, I think outside top 200 is likely. I think it would be 300 if he wasn't around, and I think it'd be maybe 330 if he wasn't around.
It's not that bad. So they brought the Booth guy's a 4-star.
Yeah, right? He's a project though. Like his whole appeal is like.
Okay. My point is that's how good Shrewsbury is to have, and how bad Payne is that we have Notre Dame over Louisville, because I do.
Yeah, same.
I do too.
Well, actually, I don't. I have Louisville.
Louisville's roster is like
Notre Dame head.
Notre Dame. This roster's terrible. Yeah.
Notre Dame's this year does not matter for Notre Dame. Like it doesn't matter. Like figure out who's good among the freshmen, play them, throw them out there. Like they have no seniors on the roster. It's basically freshmen and sophomores. Play those guys, figure out who's good. Hopefully fill in a little bit more with the portal next year. I know it's tough at Notre Dame with their admissions. I think Bray had the same issue. But hopefully Shrewsbury can bring in higher talent. And yeah, I just think Shrewsbury could have us 5, 3 of us and 2 other random people and still beat Kenny Payne. So I'm sticking with them 14th.
I have nothing else to add.
They don't really have 10 scholarship players right now, do they?
I bet they're going to play.
They signed other guys.
It's a great year for him to be in year one of. That's it. Yeah, they didn't sign. I don't know. There's no depth. I don't know why I did that. Dude, there's literally no actual human bodies of depth. Not like they just don't even have guys.
So slow. Yeah,
I guess they're going to have to. Yeah. You can see them competing, playing UNC close at home this year, right? Or like Virginia. Yeah, they're down 5 at the under 4 at home. You can't. Okay.
I think they're so bad.
They'll drag some teams into the muck with their pace, and I think Burton and Shrewsbury will be a little better than just like 3-star broad brush painting. We'll see.
They're gonna beat Louisville,
and then Louisville, the 15th. Man, how the mighty have fallen here! My goodness. It's hard to underscore just how pathetic this team was last year. But Payne,
let's do it anyway.
Right?
They were terrible.
They were horrible. Just look at the results.
They finished 3 spots above Chicago State.
Chicago State was better than this team for a week last year, according to the metrics.
Longer
Chicago
than
State
that.
was a better basketball team. If you put those teams on a neutral court, Chicago State would have been favored by a half point over Louisville for a week. That is in a nutshell where this program is right now. We'll see what Kenny Payne does in year 2. Brings in Sky Clark, Jim, who has just rave reviews from Illinois fans on what a chemistry guy he is. So that's a great addition. I would guess
Like
there.
Matt, is he an upgrade over L. Ellis? He can't be, right?
No, he's a downgrade. I feel very confident he's worse than L. Ellis. Yes, I actually liked Ellis.
agreed.
I feel like Ellis tried, was good, just had no help around him, dysfunctional situation. I think Sky Clark could just make the dysfunction reemerge. Yeah.
At least
four top 100 freshmen, so he has some young talent. So nice job, Kenny.
At least he has guards on his roster this year, more than Ellis. He has more than one guard on his roster. Tyler Johnson is eligible. Thank you, Pat.
Yep.
So that matters. But still not a lot. Really
Why
bad.
did Trey White go here?
I don't know.
I'm
it's still
very
a bad
confused
roster.
by that.
And Payne, does Payne get fired this year?
Yes. I think they win like 11 games, and that's not enough.
Was White spooked by the Collier LeBron momentum coming in? He wanted to get out of there and just go to a place
I'm
where he
okay
can
with
just chuck.
Leaving USC, but man, how do you pick this situation? That's just shocking.
Shots.
I think Alabama was interested in him. Yeah,
Shots.
it's gotta be. Which, if that's why you're going there, the team's probably not going to improve.
Yeah.
Can we at least hype up one of the freshmen, like Dennis Evans? I know is supposed to be a pretty good player. Again, is he more project-y? Probably 7-footer. Some good tape on him I saw on Twitter. That's my 2 cents.
I think Johnson's pretty solid. He was a Memphis recruit before, Tyler Johnson. So I think he actually has a little bit of juice to him. Penny Hardaway wanted him. That matters talent wise.
Mike James, we mentioned his name. He's the only returning guy who matters from last year. Oh, sorry. Well, Hartley Hunfield and then JJ.
Huntley Hatfield was
Huntley Hatfield.
Fringe 4-star, 5-star. But hey, there's another guy that reclassed and struggled with physicality when you go up a level like that.
Man, I'm excited.
How many games did they win, Matt? How many games?
I said 11 last year.
They were 4-20 last year.
They lost 5 bye games last year.
Oh my goodness gracious!
I think they won 3. I think they won 4 in the league this year.
Man,
best bet made last year.
4-16.
Best bet I made last year was Bellarmine against Louisville opening game. Best bet.
Oh yeah, the crosstown rivalry, just the better team.
It's Bellarmine's going to beat.
Yeah,
Louisville.
That's a lock. Yeah. That was a good bet. Hey, they beat Western Kentucky at home. They got Florida A&M 2 by 6. Florida A&M was one of the worst teams in college basketball. They just squeaked by them. Clemson needs to take a lap for losing.
I guess they would do. I think Western Kentucky was the first game they covered, and then they didn't do that much since.
Yeah, I think they only covered twice the rest of the year. They beat Georgia Tech and Clemson. That was it. They lost and did not cover every other game. It's pretty hard to do.
Pat says 9 wins for Louisville.
Total or in the ACC? Total. Okay.
Total.
Wow, I'm the optimist saying 11. How about that?
Right. I get to 9.
Yeah, maybe it's not 11.
I haven't seen the schedule. I haven't gone through.
It's a good line.
Schedule.
It's a good line. 9.
Yeah, good 9. I like that, Pat. Yep. How many teams are making the field this year?
5 for me. I'm putting 5 ACC teams in the tournament. I still think it's
pathetic.
Mushy.
It's a pathetic ratio. It's a pathetic ratio.
Mushy league again.
I'll say 6.
They got 5 last year, and 2 of them were 11 seeds. So
I think 6 make it, maybe 7, but I'll go 6.
I should say 4, but I'll say
they've had 5 the last 2 years. In fact,
yeah. So
I think this league looks the same as last year.
Yeah.
It could be worse, and it could be worse, but I think it's about the same. So I think 4 to 5, 4 to 6 is probably the right guess there.
Fun fact, Matt,
good.
End of year average for ACC ratings was 87.8. Going into the year, 87.8. So I have the exact same as last year. Yeah.
Let's see. I think I'm about the. I had this league better this year. Okay, I'm going 5. Screw it. Go ACC.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, Duke's going to dominate the non-con, and then teams will just beat Duke and use that to prop up their bubble-licious resumes. That's all I have to add on this podcast. Final thoughts on the ACC, Kai, Jim, or nothing? Let's hype up next week, which we'll be talking the Big East,
or the Big 12,
or the Big 12, or the Big 10.
The Big 10.
We'll make that decision behind the scenes. You'll find out in due time. Until that time, thank you for stopping by for another lengthy, awesome breakdown of a power conference. Until next week, cheerio.
My window's frozen to end the stream, so everybody's seeing this. Aha.